Have you ever been absolutely sure you made a decision because you wanted to, only to realize later you were quietly influenced by something you never even noticed? Here's the unsettling part. Psychologists have found that many of our daily decisions aren't nearly as rational as we like to believe. From what we buy, to who we trust, to the opportunities we ignore, our brains rely on mental shortcuts that often work against us. By the end of this video, you'll discover 7 cognitive biases that secretly shape your everyday choices. More importantly, you'll learn how simply recognizing them can give you back control over decisions you didn't even realize were being made for you. Let's begin. Imagine you're convinced a certain diet is the healthiest one available. What happens next? You start watching videos that support it. You follow experts who agree with it. You ignore articles that challenge it. Without realizing it, you're no longer searching for the truth, you're searching for agreement. This is called confirmation bias, our tendency to seek information that confirms what we already believe while dismissing evidence that contradicts it. Researchers have repeatedly found that people naturally pay more attention to information that supports their existing opinions. It happens in politics, investing, relationships, and even everyday conversations. Think about social media. The algorithm quickly notices what you like, then feeds you more of it. Over time, your beliefs feel stronger, not necessarily because they're more accurate, but because they're constantly reinforced. Here's a question. When was the last time you deliberately looked for evidence that proved you wrong? That simple habit might be one of the most powerful forms of critical thinking. Imagine walking into a shop. You see a jacket with a tag that says, originally 300 pounds. Now only 120 pounds. Suddenly, 120 pounds feels like an incredible bargain. But ask yourself, would it still seem cheap if you had never seen the 300-pound price? Probably not. That's the anchoring effect. Our brains heavily rely on the first piece of information we receive, even when it's completely arbitrary. The first number becomes an invisible reference point that influences everything afterwards. Businesses know this. Salary negotiations use it. Estate agents use it, online retailers use it, even restaurants use expensive menu items to make everything else appear more affordable. The anchor doesn't need to be accurate, it just needs to come first. Mini challenge. The next time someone gives you a number, whether it's a price, salary, or estimate, pause before reacting. Ask yourself, would I think differently if I had never heard this first number? That tiny question can save you from surprisingly expensive decisions. 3. Bias third, the availability heuristic. Why do people fear shark attacks more than heart disease? Because shark attacks are dramatic. They're memorable. They dominate headlines. Heart disease, despite being far more common, doesn't receive the same emotional attention. Our brains estimate probability based on how easily examples come to mind. Psychologists call this the availability heuristic. If something is vivid, recent, or emotionally charged, we automatically assume it's more likely to happen. After hearing about a plane crash, many people become nervous about flying, even though statistically, driving remains far more dangerous. Our memory isn't a perfect record of reality. It's a highlight reel, and highlight reels rarely represent everyday life. So before making a decision based on fear, ask yourself, is this actually common, or is it simply memorable? That distinction changes everything. Imagine someone offers you 2 choices. Option 1, receive 100 pounds. Option 2, flip a coin. Heads, you win 220 pounds. Tails, you get nothing. Many people take the guaranteed 100 pounds, even though the gamble has a higher potential value. Why? Because losing feels significantly more painful than winning feels pleasurable. Psychologists call this loss aversion. The emotional weight of losing is often much stronger than the joy of gaining the same amount. This bias explains why investors hold on to losing stocks for too long, why people stay in unhappy jobs, why relationships sometimes continue long after they've become unhealthy. Walking away feels like accepting a loss, but sometimes holding on costs even more. Question for you. Have you ever kept doing something simply because you'd already invested too much time or effort into it? If so, you weren't alone. Have you ever assumed someone was intelligent simply because they were attractive, or trusted someone instantly because they spoke confidently? That's the halo effect. When we notice one positive quality, our brains automatically assume there are many more. One good impression spreads like a halo over everything else. A polished speaker suddenly seems more knowledgeable. A famous celebrity appears more trustworthy. A beautifully designed product somehow feels higher quality, even before we use it. Companies spend millions creating strong first impressions because they understand how quickly our brains fill in the blanks. Confidence isn't competence. Popularity isn't expertise. Appearance isn't evidence. The next time someone immediately impresses you, slow down. Ask yourself, what evidence do I actually have? Imagine walking through a city looking for somewhere to eat. One restaurant is empty, another has a queue stretching outside. Which one feels better? Most people instinctively choose the busy one. That's the bandwagon effect. We often assume that if lots of people believe something, buy something, or support something, it must be right. This bias made viral trends explode. It fuels stock market bubbles, it shapes fashion, it even influences elections. Humans evolved in groups. Following the crowd was often safer than standing alone. But today's world isn't always the same. Sometimes the crowd is informed, sometimes it's simply loud. Think about this. How many of your opinions began because you genuinely researched them? And how many started because everyone else seemed convinced? Imagine you've watched 90 minutes of a terrible film. You're bored, you're checking your phone, you know you're not enjoying it, yet you stay until the credits. Why? Because you've already watched most of it. That's the sunk cost fallacy. We continue investing in bad decisions simply because we've already invested something. Time, money, energy, emotion. But here's the truth. Those resources are already gone. The only question that matters now is, if I were starting from scratch today, would I still choose this? That single question has helped countless people leave failing businesses, toxic friendships, and unfulfilling careers. The past cannot be recovered, but your future is still negotiable. Don't let yesterday's investment decide tomorrow's life. Here's what makes cognitive biases so fascinating. None of them mean you're unintelligent. They're not flaws, they're shortcuts. Your brain processes an overwhelming amount of information every second, and these shortcuts evolve to help you make decisions quickly. The problem is that the modern world constantly exploits them. Advertising, social media, news headlines, marketing, even everyday conversations. The more aware you become of these biases, the harder they are to manipulate. Awareness doesn't eliminate them completely, but it creates something incredibly valuable, a moment between impulse and action. And sometimes, that single moment is enough to make a completely different decision. So the next time you're convinced you're making a completely rational choice, ask yourself, is this really my decision? Or is one of these hidden biases quietly steering the wheel? Because the greatest trick your mind ever plays isn't convincing you that you're wrong. It's convincing you that you're completely objective. If you recognized yourself in any of these biases, let us know in the comments which one catches you most often. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the psychology behind everyday decisions, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more psychology content, and we'll see you in the next one.